Well, good morning, everybody. For those of you who decide to wake up early and join us live, this is Dr. Christian Pean. I'm the founder author here at Techie Surgeon, where we write and discuss health policy and technology. Today, I'm really fortunate to be interviewing and talking with Nevin Ramanujan. Nevin Ramanujan is one of the partners at InnovateHealth Ventures, a fund where they are catalyzing the innovations that improve the health of our healthcare system. Nevin, I think you and I met at Vive in person, but we've been in
Mm.
touch before because I
Yeah.
was raising our last round at Revel AI Health. I'm really excited to dive into what early founders should be optimizing for to get the attention of funds like yours. Um, I think we're also just really excited to hear your story, why you decided to get into venture, and I think it's going to be a great half hour or so. So, with no further ado, welcome, Nevin. I would love to just hear your background and
Mhm.
your life story on how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I mean, my the first part of my career was in the private credit space. So folks that were trying to, underwrite their business for more of the debt part of their business, which is interesting because you learn a little bit more historically about how they've had to perform. Um, I think two things around it. One is we didn't care as much about the growth aspect of what they do. The second element was it was a generalist. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a generalist sort of role, meaning that you never really dived into an industry, right?
yeah,
And I think from that context, it was something where you picked up really strong skill sets of understanding where a company had to get to, but you never really could be as value add as you wanted to, and it helped me start to understand where I wanted to be as an investor. And from that lens, I don't know, I from the portfolio that I'd been looking at, I kind of started falling in love with healthcare. The idea that as you invest, you can really you know you can if the company does things in the right way, it truly helps patients, and you can build a really strong business around it. So I took a leap, went and joined the corporate development, M&A and investing team at Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, moved out to Indianapolis. I had never been in the Midwest at all, moved in February during a blizzard. And, you know, moved there when, the CVS Aetna acquisition had been happening. There was a lot of change happening in the healthcare system around 2018. And, you know, I won't say the rest is history. The rest is still going on. And, the healthcare industry has been going through some seismic changes. It's been, you know, a period of vertical integration. It's transformation across COVID, and kind of seeing what's been happening through COVID was an amazing, just an amazing seat. I think the most interesting aspect that I went through during my time at Anthem was really being a part of, the different assets that were being acquired that,
yeah,
you know, came about, the acquisition of Aspire Health on the palliative care management side, the acquisition of Beacon Health Options on behavioral health management, and kind of the build out, of, how national payers were becoming more and more, not just a health plan anymore. Uh,
yeah,
at that point, I felt that I could start being more of a value add for, folks building in healthcare. Had I ever been in venture before? No. But I left, Anthem, around mid to end of 2021, and joined up with Jonathan Ellis, a local GP in the Chicago area, and we started, working together first in healthcare. And interesting, my computer keeps to be going in and out. Hopefully, my camera
oh,
doesn't go.
your audio is great, don't worry. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, we built out a fund focused on where we think the healthcare system is going. We believe it's going to an area of proactive integrated care. And, whether it's, fully vertically integrated or horizontally integrated, we believe that there's going to be a system of connections throughout healthcare between health plans, health systems, the folks that provide, the folks that deliver, the folks that make care. And how do we make it so everyone is fully aligned in the system? And we believe that the next stage of founders that are building for that are the ones that we want to be that strategic partner for. So that was the idea behind Innovate Health Ventures. We wanted to build it at seed when, the founder is going through that valley of death and they just need access to strategics. They need access to folks that can help them ideate and, iterate on their business model before they really pump in the gasoline. So our goal isn't to give the founder 10 million plus in capital. It's to give you, 500K, a million, as you're raising out a $2.5 to $5 million round, where you have a 24-month period, and we're just helping you be able to get more shots on goal with the folks on it. So that's hopefully a little bit of background there.
That's fantastic. You mentioned this term, proactive integrated care. I mean, I think that right now healthcare really feels like a reactive, fragmented system. Uh, where do you think founders today can prove to a fund like yours that they're building towards that vision of proactive integrated care? What gets you really excited when you see a company that aligns with what Innovate Health Ventures is hoping to fund?
I think the things that make me the most excited is when they're telling me they're interacting with their customers in a way I've never seen before. And when they tell me they're allowing their customers to connect to folks they never even thought they'd be able to connect to in that manner. Whether it's like how a primary care physician connects with their specialist, connects with their health plan, how specialists, may connect with biopharma or, honestly may be able to, you know, provide change into how their patients behave. I think the key thing is not necessarily just a capability, but the outcomes of by which are you actively changing how different stakeholders uh, interact in healthcare by the utilization of your platform, meaning that it's not just helping make their day to day more efficient, but it's actively changing what they can do and their feeling of being less in a silo, right? I think the key thing around healthcare is networks. Are you, is what you're doing creating such a change that you're either an actual or a de facto network with all the clients that work with you? Um, that sounds specific, but I feel like it relates a ton with healthcare. So
100%. Yeah, we talk a lot about trying to become an infrastructure company at Revel AI Health for sure, and moving away from point solution to platform. It's a grind though when you're early and, like you said, you're navigating the valley of death. I was talking to a very early physician founder recently. Really in like the pre-seed phase, and he was really excited. He got to pitch to a group, and I told him, that's great. Embrace this excitement because the next 2 to 10 years of your life are going to be undulating exhilaration and extreme disappointment and fear. Um, Tell me a little bit more about how you all cultivate founders who are going to make that jump from the valley of death and scrappy uh, operators to scaling a huge company that's transformative. What's that journey like? What do you feel like are the characteristics that are most important in a founder? And how does Innovate Health Ventures latch onto those characteristics and provide strategy and mentorship that allows founders to grow in that way?
I think the main thing with healthcare, and I think that's the thing that we deeply understand and allows us to keep going, is that health failure is normal. For anything that you're doing, the best idea, because at Anthem, I saw it from exit, right? You see it with the nice flashy dollar signs at the end, but what the founders had to go through those first 4 or 5 years with little to no revenue, not the metrics you would expect that a lot of venture funds would underwrite to. You have to understand with healthcare, it's deeply about trust. It's deeply about getting things right. It's deeply about building out that, network that allows your business to essentially grow as a flywheel. It's not just a straight shot, and because of that, I think for us, the most important thing, the moment we make that investment at seed at the valley of death, is to deeply empathize and get them the tools that they need so that they can think about the problem, so that they feel that even if the market is currently reacting in a certain way, what are they doing? That they're continuously building a product that helps align different folks in healthcare in a way that's essentially differentiated. So obviously, as a fund, I think most funds do this as well. We have our advisors, we have strategic partners, but the thing that we've gone to the next level in is that our advisors and our strategic partners deeply believe in a future state of integrated care, and they interact with our founders from that aspect. So you're looking at things from a lens of like, not how do you get business in the next month, but how do you keep positioning your platform so that you're the right platform that continues to get the milestones that you need, which may not be revenue focused 12 to 15 months from now, so that you're positioned in the best capacity 3 to 4 years from now. So like we try to, help them out with that aspect, very healthcare oriented.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, $7.4 billion were invested in digital health companies in the first
Mm-hmm.
half of 2026 across
Mm-hmm.
244 deals. And yeah, that's up from 6.4 billion in the first half of 2025. So it feels like things are heating up, but at the same time, almost half of those deals were these huge mega deals from about 19 companies that made up 45% of those deals. You're obviously in a different space.
Yeah.
I feel like the benchmarks have moved all over the place. And in part, we've been biased in health AI by how consumer AI is taking off. The mega hockey stick from 0 to 100 million we've seen from other companies, but it's harder for health AI companies to do that. Let's talk a little bit brass tacks. When you have someone come into the room and pitch to you, what are the metrics at this earlier stage that you're looking for? I mean, is there a revenue target? Is there some bit of traction? Obviously, you're investing heavily in the founders, but tell me a little bit about the things that you've seen founders do that make you close the deck immediately. So the biggest mistakes, and then the things that you've seen a founder do that told you, oh wow, like this is a company that I need to get involved in because I can see that they're going to be successful.
I think the thing that gets me the most excited is when they're solving an incredibly specific problem that I thought was already solved. Because that means they know this area inside and out. They know something about uh, the customers that they work with, you know, much better than someone like me from a high level view. And the final thing is that, not final, but like the the thing is, it's not a business model that could just be chat GPT'd, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of folks that are just kind of interested in healthcare as a fad. They know the huge problems and they're just going to go ahead and tackle it. But the folks that we like to work with are, people that have spent so much time that they are going after a problem people don't know is a problem. They investigate, they help discover, and other folks at some point may do it. But like with healthcare, in a way, you need to build trust. You need to build fidelity. You need to continuously be able to keep expanding and coming at what you're doing from that key capability and then adding on. And then, you can then go after that grand venture backable vision, right?
Hmm.
So at seed, we look for that one thing, Now from a tangible metric, I don't have revenue hurdles. I think the key thing for us is, do you have a commercially viable product? Because at that point, those are conversations where you can now talk to strategics and, be in the room, have those conversations and start making those final iterations on what you're thinking.
Yep.
Right. I think other metrics that I like to see or usage levels of their product. If you come to me and ask me for money immediately and you've only talked to like five physicians,
That's a
uh,
red flag.
you know, yeah, I, if I had to put in the numbers, like I would love for you to gone through the check boxes of, 100 plus physicians, either market research, actual usage of your product, maybe like 5 plus physicians or something like
Hmm.
I'm talking about physician, but obviously that can be
Clinicians, sure. Yeah.
exactly. Um, the second thing is this is most important. Do you have the legal check boxes? So
Mm,
it is highly regulatory driven. I want to know that, you know, there is a respect and understanding around that. And getting back to what you said around D2C type models, they may scale fast, but it is hell to
yeah.
deal with, it is hell to deal with regulations. It's hell to deal with liability. It is you need to make sure that the patient is being well taken care of, which is why in healthcare it's better to start small versus a grand horizontal vision.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I don't want to put too many like limitations on when a founder can talk to
Can
us, but
approach. Yeah.
but I think those are the main things is that one, a deep respect for healthcare where you really kind of check off all the boxes on, a market and regulatory aspect and being able to get your product to a minimum level of usage that may not necessarily correlate to gravity.
That's fantastic. These are all really important nuggets, I think, for folks who are watching this either live or later to think about. So that usage and that market research, I think, goes a long way. Candidly, it's hard to get in front of physicians. It's hard to get in front of clinicians, and that can be a meaningful early signal if you have real users with real feedback and diligent market research, as you said. You said something that I think is interesting. It can't just be GPT. Maybe folks saw that just a couple of days ago, ChatGPT Health is being released for broader usage. Anybody with a personal account now can log in and have feels like almost a baby version of Open Evidence or Doximity in your hands as a patient. Um, that is, I think, going to be a real threat for the front door of healthcare at traditional brick and mortar providers. We've definitely seen companies like Whoop and Aura now go from D to C to delving into the regulatory space through the CMS access model and other programs. Where do you think the bombs are for founders that are building in this space? And I think another question, everyone says they're a health AI company, right? What do you see in companies that really differentiates them and shows you that they're not going to get stomped out by ChatGPT's next feature release or by Epic's next UGM meeting?
I I think if you focus too much on the AI aspect, you lose what makes healthcare really important. I I don't know. I the best thing for me is, being able to talk to my clinician. The best thing for me is also to have trust that whatever AI solution that I'm using is something that's recommended by them. It's something that they give good thought towards and things like that. Obviously, like I go on Gemini or go on ChatGPT or I go on something like that and, I pick something up because I generally don't have that level of access, right? But the highest trust that I get comes from the clinician, the folks that put, the work in. And something else I like to say a lot, healthcare is deeply local, right? And I think, the solutions that really take off are the ones that recognize that and build it around, those hubs or localities and take it, have a strong understanding of the nuances of healthcare in any set region. How healthcare is done in LA is completely different from how healthcare is done in Kansas City, for example.
Absolutely.
Uh, or the different dynamics, the different health systems, the level of access, and you can't just have a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So, there's that. I also think that healthcare is not just going to be determined by the level of information you get from your iPhone. as well. It's going to be determined by the level of partnerships and relationships you have in relevant organizations and their interest in being able to partner with said solution and make sure that they feel prioritized, right? So I think if you're a founder and you're worried about, uh, any one of these companies deeply disintermediating you, I think that's a real feeling. Think more about the business. Think more about what are the level of relationships and connections that you're building, because those folks that are operating in those local regions that are putting down their feet to provide healthcare in any given area are going to deeply respect the founders that recognize that and want to build relationships with them and want to make their lives easier.
Yeah, and that's fantastic advice. I think early I would get asked, "Oh, what's gonna make sure that Epic, doesn't eat your lunch or that one of these other EHRs doesn't just invest $100 million or fund,
I,
back."
I, this is the wrong answer from a VC
Yeah.
generally. I don't think money solves all problems.
Yeah, I
I
agree with
don't
you, actually.
I don't think giving a founder 100 million off the bat to just use in the very beginning is the right approach. I know how much easier it would be though. But it's I think there is something to be like, if I don't have a lot of money to work with, where do I deeply prioritize? I think it
Mhm.
focuses you, drives you like, keeps on sharpening your knife and like you can build more effectively,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think,
absolutely,
yeah, yeah. And I think,
absolutely, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
and I think the other thing is that when you raise too much money in the beginning, you start, instead of building a product that can, that where you're focused on building a business model that has strong entrenchment in healthcare, you may start going for revenue, and
Mhm.
the thing at seed stage is I'm looking for business models I've never seen before.
Mhm.
Um, there can be a level of risk aversion when there's more money at play as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think like sometimes you start to chase these metrics without thinking about the workflow as much. And I used to say that I think the workflow is a durable moat combined with data. And sometimes people would look at me and kind of scratch their head. But healthcare, to your point, you can come into problems that you thought were solved, get really specific, or think about the regulatory landscape, and all of a sudden it completely opens up. And I think those are some of the companies that I'm most excited about are the ones that, yes, they're building agentic workflows and they're using the frontier model capabilities, but they're doing it and applying that technology paired sometimes with a service and often and always with some component of really difficult regulatory workflow. That's been something that's been exciting for me, certainly, both as a clinician and a founder. I wanted to, there's, I think, a couple of black boxes that you've lived in that if you'd be open, we'd love to have light shed on them. So, you've worked a lot with payers.
Mhm.
That's like the dream for a lot of founders, right? Is to land a payer contract. But it feels like a bit of a black box. There's this huge barrier to entry, or at least it seems that way. On the
Mhm.
flip side, some folks figure it out, and it becomes a flywheel for them.
Mhm.
What can you tell the listeners and readers here about what payers want to see when they have a solution pitched to them, um, and what it takes to get to that point where you can land a payer contract. And if you don't have to name a specific company, but we'd love.
I don't think there's a point to naming a specific payer. I think one, on that barrier, there is a barrier for founders trying to land payer contracts. I believe it's by design and needed because, with a health plan, you, you are responsible for the lives of millions to an extent, right? Any given region may only have two or three health plans working through it. You need to be very responsible about any solution gets used. And that's why I mentioned that, with healthcare solutions, especially at the seed, you're not going to be having a lot of revenue in the beginning because you need to be able to build the right level of data and trust and continuous familiarity with said health plan before you really engage and get to the other side, right?
Mhm.
A health plan is not there to be like, let's make waves, let's grow, let's break things. If you break things, people die.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's why healthcare is different. We're here to, everyone's here, both the health plans and the clinicians. We're all here to work in an industry that if you stretch it too much, horrific things can happen. Maybe not on a national level, but on a local level, it can be absolutely devastating. And for health plans that work in said region year after year after year after year, just like as a founder, you need to build trust. A health plan does not want to lose trust.
Mhm.
When
So
it
what's
comes,
your advice for, and you said you're saying something interesting too now, right? Like at the regional, it feels like that's an avenue, right? Is find a region, know that
yeah.
region issues or that health plan's problems or star ratings and attack them. But what's the title of the person you think a founder should look for at a
Oh,
health plan? And what's the approach they should take? Is it a
that's
LinkedIn message? Is it, hey, here's a white paper and just kind of market around them? Case studies. What do you think is effective to
oh,
approach payers and plans?
I love case studies. How do you get the data for the case studies is the thing, right?
Yeah,
But I love case studies. And I know health plans love case studies too, because they need to think on a population basis. So being able to, think about things from extrapolation and understanding, what you've done to make sure you're building something out by design allows them to now start thinking about what you're doing from a pilot basis. When you're saying who are the right folks to talk to, oh, that is such a difficult question. Because at times, even when you're within a health plan, you don't know who's the right person to talk to. Sometimes it changes, right? Especially with some of the folks that are building at the founder level. Some functions are centralized, some functions are distributed by the market. Uh, so it's a mix. I think that's some of the value. I'm sorry for shamelessly plugging myself, but that's some of the value that we provide at Innovate Health Ventures is that we try to help folks find the right people. We are continuously in conversations with health plans so that when we invest, we know, okay, you need to talk to X BCBS plan. Here's the right person. Or we ask them who is the right person, you know? Um, I think that's so the other interesting element is that instead of immediately just going to the health plan, start talking to provider groups that are in
mhm.
value-based oriented relationships, because they start orienting the groups around how do we create, value-based care contracting with health plans. Because of that, they start building out similar teams to health plans. So you may be able to get through faster, understand who is the right contract at said value-based care plan, and then you can make that parallel to a health plan,
I
right?
like that. Yeah, yeah, and it almost solves that question of where does the data come from, right? If you're
Yeah,
working with the clinicians and the providers, and
exactly.
you've made an impact on their patients, and then you go to X health plan and say, "Hey, look, we helped this number of your members through working with your providers. They're happy. They're meeting their metrics here." Yeah, I think that can be a very valuable and valid way to kind of go at it. Uh, I want to pivot a little bit. We've got maybe about 10, 15 minutes left. The other black box, I think, is the techie surgeon audience is diverse. We've got health operators, we've got healthcare leaders that are wondering about what the direction of the industry is going to be. We could certainly spend some time on that. But then there's a lot of folks in the audience that are clinicians, uh, knowledge workers, professionals, and investors. So, I think that sometimes venture capital is this kind of illustrious black box also. And most of us are pouring money into our 401ks and 457bs, rightfully so. And then, the VC world can feel like it's a black box. Tell me how you all approach LPs raising funds in the past, and what people should know when they do invest with a VC, and how do they go about doing that? I mean, what's the right? This is different than angel investing, right? Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's a parallel path. Illuminate us a little bit on how investors have approached you in the past,
Mhm.
what investors interested in this space should know about the expectations, the timeline when they do put money with the fund. I would love to hear a little bit more about that on the, like the prospective LP side.
I would say I agree with you. It is generally a black box. We approach LPs from a similar level of like who are the right folks that align with our strategy because as a healthcare fund, you know, uh, as an LP, you are putting your money to work over a period. I mean, we are gonna capital call on said money over a period of 2.5 to 5 years. And that money you probably won't see any distributions on it until year 7 of the fund, right?
Hmm.
It is an absolute long-term play. Uh,
Hmm.
and the folks that, want to go down this path, especially at venture when, a lot of founders don't it's a very hard to choose them and it's very hard to support them. Found LPs that do this, they generally want to, be in strategies where they can provide value, right? And we are also in the same boat because we have a limited number of LPs that, can invest in us, 99, right?
Yeah.
So we are, selective in just making sure that the LPs that we have around the boat are folks we can call up and, are willing to like, help out the founders to an extent because like the folks that do invest in us, they have high conviction that we are moving towards an integrated system of care. They want to be a part of that future and they want to be able to help, founders to an extent because, founders also love these folks that are, great high impact angels. But
Yeah.
the moment an angel comes in for one company, guess what? They're in for one company and then they're
Hmm.
along for the ride versus, being a part of a fund. They now have exposure to 20 plus companies and being able to like take the expertise and, work better along those lines. So when it comes to that, like, it's highly relationship driven. We
Hmm.
try to make sure that, we're working with the folks and a network that our founders would love to work with as well. And it's working with LPs that have a high trust in the platform that we have and are building and want to be there for said 10-year relationship. So like
Yeah.
relationship between a founder, between an investor and an LP is a long one. Uh,
Yeah.
we're managing the money for a long period of time. So it's similar to like, how we invest in the founder, like an LP invests in us. It's about trust, conviction about, the asset class that we're investing in and a feeling that they can also add value to said strategy over that period of time. So
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the things that I would, focus on. That's from that.
That's yeah. So longer horizon can, like you said, right? Outsized return, maybe outsized risk as well, tolerance. But the ability, in contrast to angel investing, to spread that risk over many companies, and in a way, folks are putting trust in you and the folks running the fund. How
Yeah.
do you recommend people get in touch with a fund? What's the right time? Is it just through the website? Relations. When people are interested in investing with a fund, how should they reach out?
Oh, one, I I think any fund manager would pick up a call if someone's interested in investing, right? Like it's a great conversation to have. But I think the biggest thing is the person wants to uh, I think the person wants to know that they can actually trust the fund manager because, I've seen several times like they get the money, but they never get a call afterwards, right?
Mm,
It's just there, and they never feel involved, and it's a 10-year relationship that can deeply.
mm,
So, uh, I would really approach it from the end of like who are investors that you want to build a relationship with, get to know, see what they've done, talk to honestly other LPs that they have to see how they interact. So similar like how we do background checks on founders, they 100% should do background checks and really only work with fund managers that they vet. So like LinkedIn messaging a founder, another manager, like only do it if it's like through a trusted source, you
Mhm.
know, and just try to engage in a conversation.
Yeah.
And that manager will also be like, hey, I think this is a great person to bring in. Let's talk about it when the time is right, because there are only certain times when a fund is open.
Right.
Uh, and those would be the right times around then.
Yeah. So you have to get lucky a little bit and get in touch at the right time too. Some of it's just it sounds like relationship building too.
It
Um,
is. It's
yeah,
it's not an open market, right? But,
yeah,
maybe it's like, okay, these are the founders that, that they've invested in and the founders really love working with them. Or, if you're already in healthcare, uh, these are the folks that I know are kind of part of what they're doing. And I think this is a platform that I can trust, for 10 plus years, things like that. I think, for a relationship like this, it's important that there is direct transparency, authentic. It's a platform that they will keep building and they are 100%, highly committed towards, because it, there's nothing wrong with angel investing. Um, I think there are distinct benefits, obviously, with managing a fund because you get access to a larger ecosystem of people that you get to work with, a larger ecosystem to the founders you get to work with. But it's very important to make sure you're working with the platform where you can get that level of access if that's what you want. So
yeah, yeah. Fantastic advice. We have one question here in the chat. So how do you see pre-seed founders balancing their current roles with trying to build an MVP and launch a company? This is a good question, I think, because in particular, clinician founders, I think, are always trying to strike this balance. I've certainly faced this. You've got your clinician role. You're starting a company. I think that in the vast majority of cases, I have seen funds say, "You got to pick one or the other." But, how do you think about that? What do you look at when you see a good idea and an informed, clinician founder who's still practicing? What's your is that do you wanna see people take the leap and they've gotta be spending a certain percent of their time on the company? Obviously, you're handing them a check. Is it okay to be still practicing and to be running the company? How do you think about that? We've got a lot of budding clinician founders, I think, in the techie surgeon audience for sure.
I would say that it's pure hell to to launch a company while practicing, but
Yeah,
you wouldn't be a clinician if you would. How long to be a clinician? You've done so much and you are directly helping people's lives every day. And you're building out a product in healthcare. Like, you only make the calculated decision to not practice is when the product is helping more lives, the more time you spend on it than you are
yeah.
practicing. Right. And
Yeah. Do you think that clinician found is there a split where you're like, all right, like you're seeing folks clinically or you're working your other role 1 or 2 times a week, you're working mostly on this. Is there a threshold where you say, hey, like there's just no tenable way where you can do this amount of clinical work and run this company? I can't fund you. Certainly, I've
oh,
had those
oh,
conversations where it's you got to split this much of your time. And I've always made the argument like, hey, by continuing to be a clinician, there's an edge that I have that others wouldn't, right? Because I'm living it, but it's a time commitment, right? So, what is that split that you feel comfortable with the
okay. If
clinicians?
if you're talking specifically about venture financing, because I don't think it's a ding to be approaching venture financing as when you're part time.
Yeah,
Uh, when you are like coming to me, you're raising a 2.5 to $5 million round. Uh, yeah, it's going to be very difficult to have any part-time aspect around it. If you're building out your MVP, that makes perfect sense why you were part-time, because maybe honestly, what you're doing from a clinician level directly informs how you're building the MVP, allows you to keep doing it in some capacity. There's value and synergies around it, right? But when you do come to a seed stage VC like me, or honestly, even a pre-seed, uh, you
you got
are
full time.
You work full time because the moment you take that money, you're on a clock. And it's a clock that's like 18 to 24 months. And when you need to approach the next round of financing, those investors are going to be like, okay, you took $1 million, you took $1.5 million. What have you done? And in that case, as a founder, you're 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 accountable for that. And sometimes you want as
Mhm.
much as you can for that. Before you accept venture financing, I do not have a threshold. But
Right. Yeah.
after it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Bootstrap for as long as you can, like get yeah. And the other thing, yeah, I think like that's good advice, honestly. And like the thing that I've seen is, having a co-founder that's full time is can offset a little bit.
Mm,
Nothing, nothing thrashes opposition like traction, right? Like if
yes,
you're still clinically practicing, but you're climbing past every single milestone, that's different, right? But if
absolutely.
you're pre-seed, like either have the traction speak for itself and make it so that, people that pass on you because you're practicing would feel foolish,
Mm,
uh, or just like bootstrap a little bit longer. Because I will say, like on the founder side, like once you take that check, you're on a bit of a hamster wheel, no matter how good your investors are. I have amazing investors,
yes.
amazing, very supportive, and incredibly insightful. But like you have a fiduciary duty now, and it's not for everyone. It's not for most people. So I think like that's really good advice you're giving, and I think that there's a great article somewhere like about how most companies shouldn't take VC funding, uh, and it sounds like you're giving a little bit of that advice too.
Yeah, I
Having said
think
that, it's a different
it,
scale, right? You can
it's
reach.
it's a different growth metrics that you're on, right? Because if you're building a business that continually needs to drain cash at that, you know, at that point of view for said growth, you are going to need cash again. And
Mhm.
what we look at is for X amount of cash that we put in, how much runway do you get? Usually it's 18 to 24 months. And honestly, 18 to 24 months goes by really
So
fast.
fast.
It
Yeah.
feels like a time distortion field or something like that. So you want to be working as hard as you can on it. Maybe if you're running, like an orthopedics group and you're building out a solution that's directly oriented to said group and that feeds revenue back into the company, you're like, yes, my first job is incredibly pivotal for what I'm doing. That makes complete sense, right? But if there isn't that level of interaction and synergy and that clock is going and it's going fast, because if you think about it from this aspect, it took so long to raise the capital, like 6 to 8 months or something like
Yeah.
that. Now you're starting to put the capital to work. So the first 100 days are really around kind of game planning around it. It's never an easy thing because you brought together a full syndicate around that. Now you're going out and then you're realizing a lot of customers are saying no because for a lot
Mhm.
of B2B plays, just getting in front of them is another 3 to 4 months, another conversion, 6 months. And now you're already 6 months away from burnout of all the cash. And guess what? You need to make sure that when the next round is raised, you're not sitting at 1 month of cash left.
That's
You
right.
need to be 3 to 4. So you're already raising cash again after maybe closing maybe a couple new contracts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. This is so
look at
yeah, it's a grind. It's such a grind, and yeah, the health enterprise sales cycles are so long. And I'll also say, I mean, there's never been a better time to spin up an idea or a prototype and go to market with like $1,000. I mean,
yes.
this is like, I mean, this is why we have Techie Surgeon. I mean, some of the things, if I wasn't doing all the other things like, and building a venture scale company and working, at Duke, like I think that it would be such an exciting time to experiment and iterate and get these solutions in front of people, especially with deep expertise, and then hold off on the venture funding until you've got the traction that makes
Yes.
opposition to your you wanting to balance other roles just not an option, right? Because they're going to miss the boat.
That's absolutely the case. I mean, with healthcare, it's deeply important to have you know, folks that are close to healthcare as part of the company. So if you have a full-time operator, I've seen a lot of folks that just, can keep their same job after venture financing, but
Mhm.
work with said company as like say a chief medical officer, which is incredibly
Right.
important. So,
Right.
so you can have that, fractional capacity. But if you are directly operating the company, I think almost every venture investor will be, you have to be
You
100.
you need a full-time person. I mean, right? Like, my co-founder is full-time, and, like, I'm gonna get flack, like, when I raise again, rightfully so, right? Unless you have that irresistible traction and can really show the synergy. That being said, there's others that are doing it right, like, Shiv from Abridge famously still
Mhm.
has his position, at, UPMC. It's, I think, a couple of times a month or something that he's rounding,
Yeah,
but, certainly it's more feasible with AI, and especially if you've got a good co-founder, but I think you hit on all the important points, right? Like, think
yeah,
before you take the VC funding. This is a grind for sure.
yeah.
We're coming up on the last few minutes here. Uh, Most overhyped part of health AI, most underhyped part of health AI, and
Oh,
you're
yeah. I think I I would say a lot of yeah, that's I'm gonna make enemies anytime I say it. Uh, I would say most of it is to an extent. Only from the capacity of like there are folks out there that feel with AI you don't need doctors anymore, and I'm like, no, that's absolutely not the case. Right? I see AI is a way to be like, you can now get access to information you wouldn't have, one, and a way to rationally think about said information in a way that you wouldn't have as well, right? Is an expansion of like what folks can now do, and I think the best way to go at it, and I think this is probably the underhyped part right now, or deeply focused low powered ways of utilizing AI effectively. I think those are the ones that are more low cost. Those are the ones that develop. Those are the ones that develop more on clinical, just good clinical reasoning, and you can build great partnerships around healthcare.
awesome,
Hello.
awesome. For those of you who are watching or listening instead of watching, my little baby daughter has had to come into frame here. But you heard it from Nevin
Please,
here.
please don't bump that out. Okay, don't keep recording.
Most of health AI is overhyped. The underhyped parts, uh, uh, are the ones that take deep expertise and the ones that Nevin is funding. So I'm going to give you the last word here, Nevin. Where can folks reach out to you? Should they reach out to you? And what words of wisdom do you have for our audience and for my little baby girl here?
Well, one, LinkedIn DMs are great. Just let me know that, you're a good friend of Christian and you'll always get a message from me. Um, two, email is great as well. Should I just put my email in the chat here?
Sure, yeah, and we'll include it in the
Hmm.
recording that comes out in the Substack post. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, so that's good. If you get my phone number, I think it would be kind of weird to text me, honestly, without email me. So, too many spam calls these days. But email, LinkedIn DMs, and saying you're a good pal of Christian will always get me to talk with you. So that's that on that end. And I just enjoy having, conversations around healthcare, being told that I'm wrong. It makes life worth living every day. So that's great. So please show me really strong functions of AI. I, as you said, I think this is what it is about venture. When you're really spending every day when you invest, is that you're working with founders going through the trenches. You're realizing that every day is an adventure, hence the name of the asset class. And as a specialist fund, we have strong opinions, but we have really strong opinions, but we try to have them loosely held. So we really enjoy, strong, good conversations around healthcare. And Christian, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nevin. We're really excited to release the recording. Hold strong convictions loosely, and please, please listen to and subscribe to Techie Surgeon. Nevin, we'd love to have you back on again and hear about all the success of Innovate Health Ventures. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank you.